Hello everyone. So in this video we're going to go over adding your own custom system into GES. Maybe you've got real biomes, it's got its own trees and grass and stuff like that, or any other grass or trees or whatever that already have a one system. It has to have a one system for that, for those trees or grass. And we're going to go over the systems that use material parameter collections. As you can see here in GES, I've got several systems already integrated: Megascans, Project Nature, Brushify. All these systems already have a material parameter collection set up to control its wind speed and direction. So in Brushify has a material parameter collection that has wind speed and various other things that when you change those, it changes the speed of Brushify's, wherever Brushify's at, grass and foliage. So what basically GES does, it just basically hooks up to the material parameter collections of each system and passes in the wind speed of, in this case, ultradynamic sky and the direction. So that's all we're doing. Now it's going to be a little bit of a long video to go over it, but it's not that difficult. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you go into your content drawer and go to Global Environmental Systems, okay, go into the integrations, you'll see a folder called reference. And this is just kind of a, as the name implies, a reference function for you to copy and create your own system. Now, the system I'm going to create today is actually, there's a node graph in Unreal Engine called Simple Wind, and a lot of and various other systems may use that. In this case, Megascans by default uses the Simple Wind for its foliage. Let's see where, oops, for its foliage, such as this foliage here. Now, if you've already installed uh, Global Environmental System and copied over the Megascan stuff, the Megascan stuff that you materials that you copied over, don't use a simple wind. I replaced the default simple wind for Megascans with Project Nature's wind system. I like the look of it better. It has interaction and everything like that. So all we're really going to do today is basically kind of take the Megascans that I already have existing with the Project Nature stuff and just kind of revert it back to using the simple wind. And this basically gives you an idea of how to, you know, if you were using your own system, how this would work. So the first thing you want to do when using your own system is we are going to create a folder called Simple Wind. Okay. All right. And now we've got that folder called uh, Simple Wind here. And then we are going to go into our reference folder, and we are going to copy the reference struct, wind speed struct, into our simple wind, and we're going to copy the BP functions folder into our simple wind. Okay, so once we've got that in there, then we are going to change the name of the struct from reference to simple wind. So we'll just go GES ref and change that to simple wind. You can name it whatever you want. The folders you can name whatever you want, but just, I try to keep everything the same to make it easy, and I prefix things with GES so it's not confusing. You know that it's that function specifically, or the struct is specifically tied to GES. All right. Then we're going to go in the function, and oh, that's old. Let me delete that. Actually, I think I was messing around with that. I need to delete that out of here as well. Shouldn't be in there. Should just be one. Okay, so go into functions and rename that. So reference, GES reference, and we'll call it simple wind. Okay, all right, then we need to open this up and rename this as well to replace the reference with simple wind. Okay, and we can compile and save that. All right, and just save everything. Okay. All right, so that gives us a start. Now let's go ahead, and what we need to do is change the wind speed struct to match whatever material parameter collections you're using for your system. So if we look at the default, we've got foliage wind strength and tree wind strength. Now the simple wind node doesn't use these values. And so right now, again, but if your system, say you've got a material parameter collection in your system that uses wind intensity, wind strength, wind, uh, I don't know, something else, wiggle, wind, uh, whatever it is, whatever values in your material parameter collection that you want to change based on the wind strength. I mean, you could have a bunch of them, or most of them just have a couple, like wind strength and wind intensity. But whatever you have in your material parameter collection, you want to add here. So you delete, those are default. You delete the two existing ones. All right, and then add what you want. So in this case, we are using the simple when. So we need to open that up, and we need to change a few things. Again, so simple when is what our existing system's going to be. So we will go to the Megascan presets and find our foliage. And again, we're reverting this back to using simple when, which is the default. So you can see our MS foliage. You can see right now, uh, in the WPO, and that's how you get the wind, we're using the project nature stuff. So we're going to go back to using just the simple wind that comes with Megascan. This is what comes with Megascans by default. So you can see we've got these values: wind intensity, wind height, wind speed, additional WPO. Um, and we probably don't need to change the wind height, mainly just the wind intensity and wind speed, and probably not the WPO, but I'm going to add all of them in there, just, in case you want to. I'm not sure exactly what they all, besides the wind intensity and wind speed, I'm not sure exactly what the wind height's going to do for you. Maybe change how it bends. But this just gives you the option. So the first thing we want to do is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 values in here. So we want to go ahead and add 4, well, values here, and they're all scalar, so we want to make them floats, scalar floats. Okay, all right. Just double check and make sure I am recording. Yep. Okay, and then so we want to grab wind intensity. So I'll just click on that and copy its name and change that to wind intensity. And do the same for the rest of these. Okay, and I'm also going to set the default values based on what they have set. So wind intensity is 0.15. So we'll go in here and change wind intensity to 0.15. Wind height 0.5. Wind speed 0.5. And WPO 0. And we'll save that. Okay, now your system, I mean, again, we're assuming this simple wind is your system. And again, it could be the wind system for real biomes or whatever. And your system's probably already going to have these values here, whatever these values here, set up as material parameter collections. So what we need to do is change these values instead of being material instance values to a new material parameter collection value. So we need to go back to our folder and go back to our simple wind folder. Okay, and we're going to create a new material parameter collection. So we'll go into materials, material parameter collection. And if you're not familiar with material parameter collections, you can look it up. But basically what it is an easy way to globally change something on your material. So right now, if you look at this material, it has these values. Now, this is for a material instance. So each material instance you could create, you could set these values uniquely. But in this case, we want to kind of use a global value. So whenever we change that value, no matter what foliage we're using, whether we're using grass or whether we're using plants or whatever, since they're all based on that master material foliage, we want to change the wind speed the same. So that's why we're changing it to material parameter collections. And if you look at all these other systems, like if you look at Project Nature, Brushify, Maui, they all use material parameter collections to change the wind speed and wind direction on their trees and foliage. So most systems use that methodology. So back here, we are going to rename this and we're going to call it MPC for material parameter collection and simple wind. Okay, all right. And now we need to do the same thing. We need to add 4 scalar parameters and call them the same thing. I mean, it can be whatever name you want, but again, you need to match them up, so I just keep them all the same. Mm, mm. And I'll also set these values to the defaults that I use, same here, used in the wind speed, wind struct. So I will go back and 0.15, 5, and 0.5 and 0.5. So 0.15, 0.5, and 0.5 and 0, and save that. Okay, okay. And again, in your system, you probably already have these values set up, or whatever your values are set up as a material parameter collection, but we need to go ahead and do it for the simple wind node. So we're going to do material parameter, or maybe it's just parameter collection parameter. Okay. And we're going to duplicate this. Well, actually, it already came up with MP simple wind, probably because I had it selected here. But if it didn't, you would change it to whatever material parameter collection you're using. And you can see that I've got riverology, various material parameter collections in here that link up to all the different system. MW for Maui, um, you know, so anyway, all these different material parameter collections link up to these various different systems. Okay, so in this case, we are using MPC simple win. All right, and since we've got 4 parameter values that we're going to replace, we are going to duplicate this 4 times, or have 4 of them, duplicate it 3 times, and we'll just move a little bit. And select all if you want. This is me cleaning up. Shift A, and that'll align them. And now we're just going to replace it. So we've got MPC simple wind. We want to choose a parameter wind intensity. We want to change this one. Oh, I think. Oh, nope, that worked. Okay, it changed it. I thought it changed them all for a second. I thought because I duplicated it, but no, it's fine. So this one's going to be wind height. This one is going to be wind speed. And this one's going to be WPO. And the one thing you'll notice that the WPO is, I think, actually a vector 3, but they've they're using a scalar parameter. Again, if you don't know material parameter collections, you can look it up. But if for whatever reason you wanted to use a vector parameter, you can see in your material parameter collections you've got scalar parameters, but you can add a vector parameter. So you would add a vector parameter here, and instead of um, using a scalar parameter, you would use a vector parameter. Okay? Uh, so let's connect them up. We've got wind intensity goes to wind intensity. Height goes to height. Speed goes to speed. And WPO goes to additional WPO. And now we can delete these. Okay. And let's just over here. Okay. And so we've got that. So now we've added. I just try to clean some stuff up so I can see it easier. And we don't. It looks like we don't have direction in Simple One. This may be direction. I am not sure. Could be, but there's no, I guess, obvious direction in Simple Wind. So we're not going to be setting that. Now, so now we've changed everything to use material parameter collection using our material parameter collection MPC Simple Wind. We need to now set that to our WPO again. Since this is an example already using our advanced wind that comes modified, you would just, in this case in simple wind, you would just replace this with world position offset. And again, your wind system's already going to be hooked up and probably already have these values. So you won't have to really do this part, but I need to do it to continue the example. So we'll save that, and now we're done. All right. So now going back to the part that you're probably going to be dealing with mainly is uh, adding your system to GES. So the easiest way to do it is just let's copy, I don't know, probably Project Nature's a good one just to copy. So we can just grab this guy here, Project Nature, copy it, scroll all the way down, and paste it. Okay, put it there, and grab an execution pen from here. Let's add another one. I think I've already got one there, but you just add one if you want. Move it. Okay, and then you just grab that execution pen and go all the way down here and connect it up there. Okay, we got that. All right, and since I grabbed this as an example from Project Nature, since I copied it, it's got all this stuff here set, but we need to change our function. This is set Project Nature GES, and we need to change our function to our simple wind function, which is GES simple wind. And if we open up, remember we renamed it set simple wind. So we need to change it so we can delete this function, or kind of example one, and do GES simple set simple wind. All right, and we can hook that up there and hook these up. These are the default ones we can hook up. We're going to change a few other ones in just a second. Okay, so a few things we need to change since we copied an example. We've got this for PN and enable Project Nature. We've got PM wind speed array. So we need to change those specifically for simple wind. So we can delete these. So we'll delete the PNU's wind speed array or current speed. What I like to do is just copy the name first because we're basically going to use the same name. So we'll copy the name. Oops. Copy the name. Um, delete this guy and promote him to variable. Bring him back down here. Paste in the name. And we will say SW instead of Project Nature for that one. Okay. And we will do the same thing with the wind speed array. Just copy the name, promote it to variable, and SW. Okay, now we can delete that one. Okay. And we need to change this wind speed array. Right now, it's set as the reference wind speed array because that's what this function is. Actually, one more thing before we do that. We also need to enable project nature. We need to enable SW for simple wind. So we'll copy that name, delete it. Oops. Delete that variable, promote it, and paste in the name, and we'll call it enable simple wind. Okay, now we want to also put these in a category, everything that's specific to, and I'm just aligning these, and that's you select them all and do Shift A, and that'll kind of align them all. All right, so so we want to put these into categories. You can see that everything here is in categories. So now we've got enable simple wind. So I want to create a new category called simple wind. Okay. Now these other variables here, they don't have a name because they're generic, so we don't need to put them into any categories. They're already in the generic categories. Um, but the ones here that we created, we want to put in our simple wind category. So simple wind and simple wind. Okay, the other things we want to do is we want to make them visible. So, um, and we also want to change the order. We want enable to be at the top, and we want use wind speed array, and then the wind speed array. So that looks good there. All right. So before saving or anything else, we need to change some things in the simple one. Then we can save it. I mean, you can go ahead and save it just right now. Then we need to change this simple when a couple variables, and we'll compile and save the general GES, and then we'll work once that general GES function here, the run global environmental function is compiled and saved, then we can work specifically on this function some more. So the first thing we're going to do is go in here and we got the wind speed array here, but we need to change that wind speed array, which is currently pointing to the reference, and we need to GES reference, we need to change it to the GES simple wind, GES simple wind speed struct. Okay, yep, we'll do that. We need to change this one as well. Okay, change variable type. Yep. Okay, and then the other thing we need to do, as you'll see here, now if we try to compile it and say we're going to get an error, this is expected. You know, here we'll be fine. Oh, nope, actually we won't because we still got, did I? Oh, for some reason that I didn't change that one. Still reference, so GES simple. I thought I changed that one. I guess I didn't. GES simple wind speed struct. Yep. Mm. So basically, this wind speed struct variable has to be the same as your function. So we'll compile and save. So that's all good. Now we can work on the end function. Actually, probably it's better to work on the function and get that all set, and then go back here and add, you know, set this one correctly. But you get the idea. It's not that difficult. All right. So again, here, this wind speed is now simple wind. This variable is also simple wind. We're good. Now, if we go here, we're using this wind speed array local, which is this one, and that's set to simple wind, but we're getting an error. Okay, why are we getting an error? Because it doesn't change the for loop. So we have to basically create a new for loop and connect it up, and the new for loop will have our new array elements. This was the old array element from the one we copied. It just had foliage wind strength and tree wind strength. But if we look at our struct that we created for simple wind, this one here, which matches the material parameter collection, we've got different values. We've got wind intensity, wind height, speed, and additional WPO. So that has to match up with this is what it is, and this has to match up with it. So it doesn't automatically change this when you change the struct. So what we have to do is grab this and create a new for each loop with break. All right. And then move some stuff over. So move the execution pin, move the break. Okay. We want to split the array element. All right. And you can see here that we've got the default values that we use here for all of our stuff. And then we've got the specific values here for this particular function, for this particular, project, I guess. That's what I call them. Okay, so now let's just move over the generic stuff. So we've got, let's see if I can get some more screen room and zoom in so you guys can see everything. Let's see. Okay. So we're just moving it over. So taking these booleans and stuff and matching them up with the ones at the top and just all the generic ones. Okay, and we're not using these two. So we can now get rid of, well, let's go ahead and do our loop here. Okay, so now we've got pretty much everything off of this one, and we don't need it anymore. And these values here, we're not using those, so we don't need those either. So we can delete those and delete this one and delete this one. We can also delete those two variables. So they were called foliage, what was it? Array foliage wind strength and array tree wind strength because we're not using those since the simple wind doesn't have that value in it. All right. Now, we can go ahead and compile. I just like to compile and save just to make sure. So now everything is compiled and saved as it should be. Now we need to create variables for our new, array variables for these new values here. So I just is going to right click and choose promote to local variable. Then I'm going to click on that and I'm going to call it the same name. So array wind intensity. Okay, and we'll move that one down to here and do the same for the rest of these. Array wind height. Oops. Okay, and now we can just hook everything up. Again, Shift A to make it aligned. All right, just compile and save it just for good measure. Okay, so just give a little idea of what we're doing here. Is how this works is you can see, let's take project nature as an example. Actually, we should be able to see, since we already in the GES, we already uh, made these visible. They're all visible. We should be able to see this now in GES. So now we can got simple wind, enable, we've got use wind speed array or current, and we've got our wind speed array. One other thing I like to do is make a default on this and have it disabled. I don't like to have anything enabled by default like that. Besides using wind speed array, I do like to leave that as default since most of the systems use the wind speed array, and we'll save that. And again, this depends on your system. Okay, so again, what this does is that you've got an array of elements, and I've gone over this before. And what it does basically, it says, okay, if the wind speed's between 0 and let's say 2, and ultradynamic skies wind speed is between 0 and 10, depending on what your weather type is. But since GES is designed to use other weather systems, such as Sky Creator, it might be 0 to 100 that you want as your kind of calm wind speed. For ultradynamic sky, 0 and 2 is kind of your clear skies, calm wind speed. That's just what he set it at. So between 0 and 2, we want to set our wind intensity and maybe wind speed. And again, we've already set our defaults to what they are. So maybe we want to set the wind intensity. Since it's calm, we're going to actually leave it for the first array, 0 to 2, like that. For our next array, let's say it's a little stronger, so we're going to go, okay, wind speeds between 2.1 and say 4. Well, let's put this at wind intensity, maybe let's just say 0.30, and maybe wind speed. I don't know what the range is for it. We'll have to look at it. I don't know if it's, wind speed is 0 and, oh, did I say 0.30? What was it? What was wind speed? 0.15. 0.15. So, sorry, not 0.30. So that would be like, what, you know, mm, let's say yeah, I don't know, 2.2, maybe 0.3. Okay, so again, these are things depending on what your wind system, what your tree or grass wind system that's built into it might use. For example, Maui's wind speed I think is 0 to 20 or something like that. So maybe your wind intensity might be set at 2 or 5 or 10 or whatever your wind system comes with. The GES will only work if you've already got an existing wind system for whatever pack you're using. So let's say if you're using Real Biome, it's going to have its wind system. That wind system is going to be controlled by Material Planner Collections, and their wind system is going to expect a value between 0 and whatever. It might be 0 to point to 1, so it might be 0.1, 0.2, it might be 0 to 5 or 10. You're going to have to read the documentation on the particular wind system to know what to set your values at. So we're just trying stuff out here for simple wind and see how that works. So anyway, you get the idea there. So so that's all we're doing here. When we're going through here and we're looping through it, we're basically grabbing those array values and seeing if they match the current wind intensity. So if so if the wind intensity is between 0 and 2, then it'll set these values here. In this, it'll grab these values from array and set these here for 0 to 2. If it's 2.1 to 4, then it'll grab, you know, the next array, whatever you've set, and it'll grab, these values and set it. So that's all we're doing in, oops, in this array here. So now we've got that basically done there. Now we need to actually set those values. We need to actually change the material parameter collection values so that it works. So if we go back to our material for Megascans, which is using the simple wind, we go back to the material and go back to the simple wind, we basically need to set these values, okay? So that our wind intensity decreases as the weather wind intensity decreases, UDS speed or UDW speed increases. So now we need to set those, okay? So in here, this right here is going to be your first one. This get scalar parameter um, basically just checks to see if we need to fire it off, if we need to change it. So, for example, what I mean by that is that we have got in our arrays, we define a range, 0 and 2. Now, ultradynamics weather, is a float, so it's going to be 0 to 0.2, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. So we don't want to trigger it for every, we don't want to trigger it when it's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. We only want to trigger it once when it's within this range, just once. Because if it's in this range, we're saying set the wind intensity 0.15. We don't need to keep setting it to 0.15 to just set it once. So that's what we're basically doing here. And you don't have to have this you don't have to have this check if you don't want to. I just didn't want it to keep setting these values when they're not changing. Now maybe there's no performance in it. Maybe it doesn't even matter. Or maybe I don't need this check and we can just keep setting the same value. We can keep setting it to you know 0.15 as long as it's within this range. Keep setting it to 0.15 and it doesn't matter. But I just thought, hey, let's put this check in here just in case. So that's basically what we're doing. So we've got get scalar parameters. So the first thing we need to do is change it to our simple wind material parameter collection. So we can do MPC underscore simple wind. Okay. And we will check the wind intensity. And we will need to also grab the array wind intensity. I'm not sure why that wasn't on there, but we need to check the array wind intensity and basically say, okay, has it changed? Is the array wind intensity value the same as the material parameter collection value? Meaning, have we already set the material parameter collection to 0.15? If we have, don't do anything else. Stop right there. If we haven't, let's go ahead and change the wind. And in these default examples, we don't need these two separate things because we're not using trees and foliage. We're just using one. So we can delete that and then get rid of that there, and then just connect. Well, actually, let's not connect that yet. Let's delete that. Leave that there for now. So we've got two main parameters we want to set. I don't really want to set height and WPO. It's there in case we put it if we want to. And as an example, again, and you can choose what parameters you want to set. Maybe you only want to. Maybe you've got 10 parameters you can set, but you only really care about two. I just use this as an example and put it all because maybe as the wind speed changes, you might want to change wind intensity and wind height and wind speed. But in my case, I'm thinking, well, as the wind speed changes for for ultradynamic weather, we really only care about changing the wind speed and the wind speed and the wind intensity. I don't know about additional WPO or wind height right now. I'm not going to actually change those. So going back to our function, we really only need to set, and this here is a get parameter. Just again, if you're not familiar with material parameter collections, in order to get something, you just type in parameter collection. No, excuse me. Um, get material. Get is it? No, I don't know. Material. what is it? Get parameter. No, that's not it. What it? Oh, get scalar. So get scalar. Get scalar parameter value. Okay, you can get that, and then all you do is select your collection. In this case, it's simple wind. Okay, and then you select your value. Same thing as for set, and in this case, since it's the reference, we can just copy it. But again, if you didn't know, you just do set material parameter. It's under materials, so it should be under material. Hmm. Wow. Oh, set scalar. I keep on doing that. Set scalar. Scalar parameter value. Okay. And then you've also got set vector parameter value. Sometimes the direction will use vector. That's another thing real quick. Since we're not using direction, we don't really need to set it. So I'm just going to disable that right there, and that's fine. It's not going to do anything because we're not actually using it. So in this case, I'm just going to copy it. Copy and paste, just duplicate it, right? So now we'll set this to MPC simple wind, and we will set our wind intensity, and we'll do the same thing here, MPC simple wind, and we will set our speed. Okay. Now we need to grab the array values. So array wind intensity, get that, and plug that in here. And our array wind speed, and plug that in there. Okay, so that's the main part of it right there. So up here, we've got array use multiplier, and in the default, I didn't have anything set up, but I'm going to show you how to do that. If you want to use a multiplier, the multiplier, again, is here. So it is under global. And so basically, the wind strength multiplier. So like if whatever your wind strengths for everything else, if you wanted to like just instead of changing each individual value, you could, it's a multiply. So I could multiply this by 2, and then whole wind in the world would increase by whatever. It may or may not work for you depending on the system, but it's there as an option. So if we want to set that up, we've got wind strength multiplier, and now we want to multiply it by the two values we're changing, array, the array wind intensity and the array wind speed. So I will just copy that one over here and paste it, and then I will copy the wind speed and paste it. Okay, and now I want to set these values, so I will grab the array wind intensity and choose set, and I'm going to set it to the new value, which is the multiplier, and I'm going to grab the speed and set it to the new value of the multiplier. All right, and then I'm going to, if we're using it as true, we're going to grab that and set these values, and then we're still going to check if it's already set. So that's how we set up the multiplier. Okay, so everything looks good in there, and that's pretty good. Everything looks good set up. Let's compile it, make sure everything compiles and saves. And that is pretty much how you set it. The other option here you have where it says use wind speed array local. If it's true, we're going to use that wind speed array. If it's false, meaning if, let's take a look, and this is true. So we've got enable wind speed simple wind. We've got use wind speed array or current wind speed. So it's enabled. I like it enabled by default, meaning we're going to use the wind speed array to change the wind speed of our foliage and trees. However, you can use the UDS wind speed directly, which is between 0 and 10, or again, if it's Sky Creator, 0 and 500, or whatever system it is. If you uncheck this, then we're not going to use the wind speed array to change the values. We're just going to grab whatever the current wind speed is. So current wind speed, that would be whatever in this case UDS wind speed. Let's say it's 5. Let's just say or let's say 9. We're in thunderstorms. We've chosen thunderstorms. The current wind speed I think is going to be probably 9, right? And we're just going to pass that in. So if we choose to not use the wind speed array, then we're passing in the local weather wind intensity, which is the current UDS wind intensity. In this case, we're just saying it's 9. And then you can do whatever you want. So you bring your execution bin down here, and maybe your tree system or your foliage system uses a value between 0 and 10 for its min and max speed. So then you could just bring that execution pin down here and grab these scalar, setting these scalar values, and just pass in the wind speed, the wind intensity directly. Maybe you might want to divide it by 10. Maybe it uses, instead of 0 to 10, it uses 0 to 1, 0.10, or maybe you multiply it by 3, or whatever your wind speed, whatever your grass and trees, use as a float value for min and max of its wind speed. So you could change this, and that way, anytime the wind speed changes, it's just multiplying or dividing or adding or minus, and not using the wind speed array. For some systems that might work better. It could be smoother. Um, but most systems it's not. Most systems, if you change the wind speed really often, like if you change it every zero point 0.1 second or every second, it's going to be really jerky. That's kind of why we use the wind speed array, to only kind of make major changes. It'll change at between 0 and 2, and then the next one it won't be changing every time the wind speed changes, because ultradynamic sky uses a float, and anytime it goes 1.1, 1.2, of course you could truncate that between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, again, but I kind of like to do a range that gives it so it doesn't change quite as often, because some systems, when they change the WPO, you can see the grass or trees kind of jerk change, where other systems it might be a smoother change. So it really depends on your system. I think Brushify, I use the wind speed directly because that system has a smoother change, and other systems are better using the wind speed array. So again, that's up to your discretion. So now that we've got that set, the function set there, we set everything here. We made everything visible. We added a category to it. And again, just save and compile here. Good. And we've got the foliage set here. So let's take a look at what we have in our system. So, all right, so let's look here. Oops. Now you can see how it's wavy now. You can see how it's wavy now. That is, so we know it's using the simple wind. And again, that's why I'm not using the simple wind. I didn't really particularly like the wavy effect. It didn't really seem so natural to me. That's why I'm not using it. But we can tell now that we are using the simple wind. Now let's actually enable it. And see if everything's working. And the reason it's moving now is because we set defaults for the material parameter collection. But you could change the defaults if you don't want it to be moving at all. You could set, instead of 0.15 for your defaults on your material parameter collection, you could set it all to 0. That's really up to you. So we're going to enable it, and let's see. So we have got 0 and 2 of 15, and let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and do between, look at my look at what I've set for kind of mega scans or any of them. You can just kind of see the default array I've set for the values. Whoops, let's see. for the ultra dynamic weather values. So you can see it here. I'm using 0 to 2 and 2.1 to 4, 6.1 to 8, and the max of 8.1 to 10. Those are, for ultra dynamic weather, that kind of works well. And then of course each one of these, then you would set uh, the speed of your foliage or trees to correspond with clear skies, or this would be thunderstorm. And for megascans, these are the values that work, 10 and 12. But for maybe Maui, that might be 4 and 5, or whatever the values are for your weather or for your foliage system, foliage wind speed. So let's see if this works. So I want to, let's see, let me do, what did I say? It was 8.1 to, now I forgot. What was it? What was the max? So 8.1 to 10 is going to be our thunderstorm. So we'll do 8.1 to 10. And the default wind intensities one was 0.15. So I don't know. Let's just make it maybe 0.9. Let's try that. And I don't know. Well, we'll leave the wind speed as what it was the default. I think it was wind speed was 0.5. I think it was the default. So we'll leave the wind speed as 0.5 right now, just to change the intensity, because the wind speed intensity may one may be kind of smoother, the other one may not be. You'll have to play around with it depending on your system. So let's see how this works. Let me turn off the sound on ultra dynamic weather. So that doesn't, oh, I think I actually already have the sound. Maybe that was the river. Let's just make sure I have the sound off. Let's just turn, oh, yeah, I already had it off. That was just indoors, so I already had it off. Okay, I think that's just my river. Okay, so we're at clear skies. Let's see if yep. So now you can see how now we're at thunderstorm. See how it's moving faster. And I didn't put all the other arrays. Like I didn't put it for the intermediate speeds. I just put the array for the clear skies and thunderstorms. I mean, if you want to move it step by step, you can see how I did it with Megascans or Project Nature. Again, I set this wind speed, okay, if it's between 2.1, then increase it by this and increase it by this. But you can see right now it's moving pretty fast, and I'll slowly go down, and there we go. Now we're back to clear skies. Okay, so that is working. And again, just go in here and so I only added kind of, okay, the lowest wind speed and the max wind speed. I can add middle wind speed, higher wind speed, and you would want to do that. I was just giving you an example, and if we want to make it move even more, let's try the increasing the wind speed to 0.9, and maybe, I don't know, let's try 1.5 and see what that does. So you'll figure it out with your system. Yeah, so you get different movement. So you'll have to figure out what values you want for your range, min and max, and all the other values between based on wind speed. So I think that is pretty much it. And I'll go ahead and add this simple wind into GES as a default um, option. Mm, I think, and then you can play around with it. So I think that covers everything, I believe. All right, so that kind of shows you how to add a new system to GES. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.